Hey guys, welcome back to Maths Recovery with Rebecca. So today we are going to be looking at the negative reduction angles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you a way to adjust the negative angles so that it takes us back to our original reduction formula to make our life easier when we do reduction. Okay, so we need to understand this, which we have already looked at from the first video. Starting in quadrant 1, if you look here, we're from 0 to 90, that's an acute angle, which is theta, and then our reduction formula play out. Going in an anti-clockwise position, you'll see that positives go in an anti-clockwise position. Sorry, that whole thing threw me out. Anywho, let's carry on. And then going in a clockwise position, we have our negative angles. That means that in quadrant 4 is the start of our negative acute angles. And if we had to play that whole story out, you would have from 0 to negative 90, and then negative 90 to negative 180, negative 180 to negative 270, and negative 270 to negative 360. So the whole Cartesian plane is just flipped around. It's like when you work on a normal number line, and you hit 0, all the angles before, or all the numbers before that are all negative, and all the numbers in front of that are all positive. So that's exactly the same thing that's happening here. We're just working in a circle. Okay, so let's go and look at this first example. So it says the process can be reversed so that we can get back to our original reduction formula. But let's just take a look here. So let's put our negative angles in there. And let's go and draw this negative 210. So there's the angle. So what I've done is I've started at 0 and I've gone to negative 90, negative 180, and I've moved myself up. So roughly this is negative 210. Okay, makes sense. Let's go and add 360. So now we're just adding a revolution. You're always going to add a revolution. Nothing less and nothing more. You're going to add 360, add 360, add 360, or subtract 360, subtract 360 as you need to, but 360 is the only number that we can use. So what's going to happen is the reason why we could only use 360 is because it places us in the same position as we were when it is in the negative. So you see, if we go and start from this point, and we add, so we go negative 210 plus 360. Do you see how it takes us to the exact same place? It takes us to 150, which is the exact space where negative 210 is. So that's what we're going to do. So you're going to go sine negative 210 plus 360, and that's going to leave me with a sine 150. And what do we know about sine 150? Well, it's in quadrant 2, and this is whose quadrant? This is sine's quadrant, so that means it stays positive. And then 150 plus 180 plus, or 180 minus what? Gives me 150. Well, it's 30. So this becomes sine 30. So this is a similar example to the example in the first video, but this is just negative. Okay. So hopefully you understand, by adding 360 to a negative angle, wherever you are on the Cartesian plane, it's going to take you back to the original space within the original positive circle. Okay, so let's move on to a couple of examples. So try it out yourself and see what you get. So you can pause it, try it out yourself, but I'm just going to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a note here for myself. So I'm going to add 360 to this. And I'm going to get tan of 30. Great. Produced. Look at this next one. I am going to add 360. So what's negative 33 plus 360? That's sine 327. Now remember, we need to reduce. So 327 is in quadrant 4. So that's going to become sine 360 minus 33. Sine is negative in that quadrant. Great stuff. Let's look at this one. Again, I'm just going to add 360. So 240 minus 240 plus 360, and I'm getting 120. 120 is in whose quadrant? He is over here. So that is sine's quadrant. So that's going to be a negative. 180 minus what is 120? Remember, you don't have to write this step the whole time. If you can already visualize it in your mind, you can go straight from moving into the positive to the answer. Okay, so what's that going to be? 180 minus 60 is 120. And that's going to be negative because that is sine's quadrant. Great, let's look here. So let's add 360. So this becomes tan, so negative 185 plus 360. That leaves me with a 175. And 175 is again in sine's quadrant. So you can ask yourself, it's going to be negative. And 180 minus what? Well, 5. There we go. Hopefully you got all of those correct. Let's look at this last one. Now, what happens if they don't give you any angles? They ask you to reduce the following. And remember, this is we played these questions out in our second video. So if you don't know how to reduce these, go back to the second video and play with that. And the whole goal was to kind of match them to look like the original reduction formula. So what's happening here is that they don't. So even if we try and rearrange it, let's try and rearrange it. So we have 180 plus x. Well, the problem is on both of these, the 180 had to be plus. So we can do the same thing. Let's go and just add 360. And what is this going to change to? Well, if I go and add 360, that's just going to become 180 plus x, which is tan x. Let's look at the next one. Let's add 360. So I'm going to have sine 180 minus x. Well, whose quadrant is this? This is sine's quadrant, 180 minus theta, so that's just a positive sine of x. We don't have to rearrange this, it's already been rearranged, but let's just add 360, and you'll see we're just getting cos x. And what happens here? What if I just add 360? Well, I'm going to be left with tan 360 minus x, which is actually in the fourth quadrant, which is just negative tan of x. Another thing to remember is, let me just change my color here. Maybe it'll make your life a bit easier. When you get these ones that are just the negative acute angle, anti-clockwise was the positive acute angle, and clockwise was the negative acute angle. So whenever you get a negative acute angle, so it's not an obtuse angle, negative acute angle, we can always assume that we are in the fourth quadrant. So if I've got sine of negative x, you can go and add 360 to that if that is your coping mechanism. It will work. But you can also take into consideration that x is the acute angle. So negative x is the negative acute angle, which makes us fall in quadrant 4, which means that without even adding the 360, I know that that is negative. Problem is now when I've got this, people just feel the need to go and make this a negative cos, but remember, this is a negative acute angle, which is cos's quadrant. So this becomes a positive cos x. But it might also be helpful if we go and add that 360, you see that quadrant just pops out, that 360 minus x. So that actually might be easier for you to grasp than the negative angle. But you do as you please. However you feel like you need to memorize these things, that's just the way I do it. Okay, so in the next video, we'll be looking at angles that are greater than 360 or that are much smaller than negative 360, and how we're going to reduce those down to acute angles. Thank you so much for watching our videos. I hope that I've helped you. Please share and subscribe, and in the comments below, please let me know what you need. Post me some questions so that I can do them if there's something that you found was quite difficult, or even if you need me to do a video for you on a specific topic that I haven't done yet. Remember, my channel is still very young, so I'm more than happy and more than open to suggestions. Thank you so much, guys. Have a grand afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are. Bye.